Wano's about to end, but we still have no idea where we're going next. And it's really been a while since it's been like this because ever since the New World, we've just had another destination to follow to get to the end goal of Kaido. So I absolutely love that it's a complete mystery. The crew is going to be traveling together as a whole for once, at least that's what we think. But that's what we're going to be discussing today. Where does the plot take us in the final saga? Where exactly are we going next, and how is that arc going to play out? Before we get to that though, I just need you to do me one favor, which is to hit that subscribe button and join our King Pirates crew because it really helps the channel and I would really appreciate it. Alright, but to start things off, the first topic we're going to talk about is an idea that I'm not completely in love with, but it's definitely a possibility, and that is a rescue mission. Because right now we're in what I believe to be the post-Wano saga, and there are still some conflicts to sort out, and the main one is Green Bull. And this man, as we saw in the latest chapter, does not play around. The guy is a menace. Initially when he first showed up, I thought he was probably going to be a nice guy, maybe he has some ties to Wano, and it's just going to be smooth sailing, just like post Alabasta and post Enies Lobby. But clearly that is not the case so far with Green Bull. The guy is out for blood. He's not even listening to Akainu. So there's absolutely potential for bad things to happen in this post Wano arc because of Green Bull. And as for how that could lead us into the next arc, I think there are two main options, which is Luffy or Robin getting captured. Out of these two, Robin is definitely the more popular option. The world government were already after her. That was their last focal point when we last saw them talking. And while Green Bull is on demon time, he's clearly not there to just try to take down the entire alliance. Even judging off of what Akainu is telling him, like, hey, stay under control, he's definitely there to accomplish like a single mission of some sort. And it's entirely possible that his single mission is to capture Nico Robin. And realistically, that mission does make sense. I don't think Green Bull could take on the entire alliance right now. Capturing Luffy will be a much harder task. Instead, if he were able to find Robin just roaming around by herself, he could definitely take her and just leave. At the same time, I do think judging off of Green Bull's character and what he's trying to do, I definitely think he's gonna try to mess with Luffy or like try to take him down, but I don't think it's gonna be successful. And ultimately, he's gonna have to shift his focus back on his actual mission, whether that's capturing Robin or maybe even trying to capture Luffy. Now, the idea of Luffy getting captured, I have to give a shout out to my guy Randy Choi. This is something he's been talking about for a while. We talked a little bit about it during the Reverie. But honestly, out of the two options in a rescue mission scenario, I kind of prefer this one more because I do really like this idea that the Straw Hats take the lead and Zoro kind of has to step up as the vice captain. And then essentially we enter an arc where the Straw Hats are the main focus instead of Luffy, who's just been getting all the shine in the New World. And that's something I think will be really cool to see because I've been really missing the Straw Hat screen time and seeing them interact. One of my favorite parts about the ending of Wano was just to see all the Straw Hats have some downtime and talk to each other and just interact with each other. If we were able to get an entire arc where the Straw Hats were the main focal point and Luffy was not taking up all the screen time, I would kind of dig that. The only thing is I don't think Oda is gonna do it. He's shown for 1,000+ chapters that at the end of the day, Luffy is gonna get all the screen time and all the fights. On top of that, there's a few reasons I don't love the rescue mission scenario in general. First off, there's a lot of potential for repetition because although it's not the exact same thing that's happening, we have seen very similar scenarios play out before. For example, if Luffy ends up getting captured or Sabo is another option, it could feel like another scenario of Ace 2.0. Now, some people are gonna argue like, hey, this time around is showing the Straw Hats are strong enough to actually save them, which is a good point and it could totally lead us to a very different, exciting arc. But at the same time, because we've seen this premise before, there are parts that are just gonna feel repetitive. And that is especially true with the Robin scenario because we've literally had an entire arc like this with Water 7 to Enies Lobby. And even more so with the Robin scenario, we literally had a moment back in Zou where Inuarashi and Nekomamushi told Robin, hey, now that you're nearing endgame, a lot of people, the world government, pirates, they're gonna come after you, so you really need to be careful. And Robin responded to them by saying she's not worried at all because her crew is gonna protect her. So for her to have that moment and say that, and then she just ends up getting captured anyway, that would make the Straw Hats look kind of bad, even if they do end up rescuing her again. So overall, as far as the rescue mission scenario goes, although I'm definitely intrigued by the idea of like the Straw Hats getting more screen time, I still don't really love the idea of a rescue mission coming directly after Wano. Because another part of this is just the overall vibe of a rescue mission, which is definitely going to be very chaotic and hectic. And honestly, we've just went through so much chaos in Wano of 100+ chapters and just so many different characters fighting. At this point, I'm low-key dying to just see some downtime of the Straw Hats all together, interacting, having some time to breathe. I really kind of miss that feeling of a new adventure, exploring a new place that you don't know where you're going. And for rescue mission is what comes next after Wano, we're just not gonna have that. If it does happen, my main question would be like, how far does it actually go? Like, is it a scenario where the Straw Hats are kind of able to rescue whoever really quickly and just get out of there? Or does it drag out to be like another gigantic war? Because there are so many other variables involved with the world government, like Sabo and Vivi and everything that happened during the Reverie. And also there are so many other things that the Straw Hats have to get to, like Laugh-Tale and Elbaf. I just don't quite see how they go to the world government, have this big war and major arc, and then just get out of there and continue on their adventure. Ultimately, I just feel like the timing's not quite right for a rescue mission, and it would just be too much chaos. Moving on to the next idea though is an idea that I really love because of what I mentioned earlier of wanting some breathing room, and this idea is going to Sphinx Island. For those of you that don't remember, Sphinx Island is the place where Whitebeard created this town for all the people from his hometown that suffered from war, and I feel like it could be a dope place to have a really small mini arc where we have some breathing room and the Straw Hats could kind of just chill for a bit, have some interactions. Obviously it doesn't have to be a long arc. Even if we get like just 10 to 15 chapters of it, I would be so down to see that. As much as I bag on Foxy and Longring Longland, low-key I'm really dying to see an arc like that right now where we just get to see some crew interactions. Now as far as why we would go to Sphinx Island, Marco is a big reason for that, and I haven't seen too many people talk about Marco's role in Wano too much, but for me, Marco's contribution in Wano, although it's been cool to see, it just feels a little underwhelming for a character that is that important. Like, he's absolutely done his thing and helped out the Straw Hats, kicked off the Big Mom Pirates, fought King and Queen for a while, but besides that, he didn't really make any major contributions. My guy was just leaning on the wall for a while. So to make such a big deal of Marco coming to Wano and then that's all he does and then he just leaves, I feel like that would be a bit underwhelming. So I think what could potentially happen is that Marco actually somehow leads us into the next arc, which could be Sphinx Island. There are still several important things connected to Marco. The Weevil storyline has to be worked and tied to the Straw Hats somehow eventually. We still need a proper answer from Marco of why he was able to leave Sphinx Island and leave it unguarded. We also don't really know any other information about the other Whitebeard pirates. Are we ever gonna see them again? And overall, there's just a lot of information tied to Marco that could be relevant, including the Fourth Road Poneglyph. Because the last time we saw that Fourth Road Poneglyph, it was on Fishman Island, which eventually became Whitebeard's territory. So could it be possible that he actually left it on Sphinx Island where everybody thinks he kept his treasure, but in actuality is just the safest place for him? I think that's definitely a possibility and could be a good way to kind of tie everything together. On top of that, it's a good opportunity for the Straw Hats to go see Ace's grave, not only for Luffy, but potentially Yamato and all the other Straw Hats that met him back in Alabasta. And it does feel like good timing to do this now that Luffy's officially a Yonko. He carried on Ace's will by helping out Tama and defeating Kaido as well. And on top of that, we're entering the final saga, so he's on the precipice of getting revenge for him and fighting Akainu and Blackbeard. If Yamato ends up joining the Straw Hats, as we hope she does, she could have some great scenes there, not only with Ace's grave, but seeing Whitebeard's grave as well from everything she read in the Odin Journal. And I think overall it could just be a really nice little arc where we have some downtime, see some interactions, get some great moments. At the end of the arc, there could be some conflict that leads us into the next arc, but this is definitely an idea that I really love and I would be so down to see it. On to the next option though, we have something on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, which is Elbaf. Elbaf, of course, is an island that we absolutely need to go to, even though I'm starting to lower my expectations a little bit on the Usopp development that we will be getting there. But anyone who thinks that we are not going to Elbaf is clearly not reading the right story. Now, as far as how we get to Elbaf, it's not really that important of a question to me because there's 100 different ways to do it. The Road Poneglyph could be there, maybe something leading to Shanks or Blackbeard or world government information. There's a lot of different ways the Straw Hats could be prompted to go to Elbaf next. Maybe it's just next on the log post, something we kind of stopped talking about. But either way, Elbaf is an arc that definitely has to happen, and although I want a little bit of a breather, I definitely wouldn't mind Elbaf coming next, because Oda is absolutely gonna go crazy with Elbaf. He's gonna have a ton of fun with this. For those of you that don't know, one of the biggest inspirations for this pirate story was the mythology of Vikings and the history of Vikings. On top of that, throughout the story, we've had so many different connections to Elbaf, especially with Usopp. And to put things in perspective, like think about Wano and how early it was set up all the way back in Thriller Bark. On the other hand, Elbaf is something he foreshadowed even earlier, all the way back in Little Garden. That was before we even got to Alabasta. And ever since then, he just kept foreshadowing it more, like in Enies Lobby when we met Oimo and Kashi. Then of course, even more so when we got to Whole Cake Island and actually got to see Elbaf in the Big Mom backstory. So even though Elbaf might end up not being as long as Wano, I definitely expect Oda to just go in and have a ton of fun. And also with this big break that he's just recently taken, I have a lot of hope that he's really planned things out and has like a good vision of how Elbaf is gonna play out. I'm not gonna talk too much much about what's gonna go down in that arc because I've talked about it a lot in recent videos, but you can definitely expect a lot of lore, a lot of endgame connections, a lot of development for Usopp as well. Now that we're in the final saga, I fully expect every single arc to give us a lot of big hints towards what the One Piece is in the Void Century, and Elbaf is gonna do that as well. There's a lot of fun potential storylines with Norse mythology, with Ragnarok and Thor's hammer. It's definitely one of the arcs I'm looking forward to the most, and it could end up being my favorite arc, so if it ends up happening next, I would absolutely be hyped. On to the last option though, we have Vira, which was never really on my radar until the recent release of The Road to Laugh Tale. To be honest with you, I definitely did not remember the multiple times it was mentioned in the story. The first time it was mentioned was all the way back in chapter 96 when Nami read from a newspaper that a revolution just happened there. So just based off of that alone, there could be a connection to the Revolutionary Army, which I do think needs more focus before we actually get to them. We've definitely got a lot of little storylines and hints, especially with the recent Sabo stuff, but it's been very small tidbits that's been kind of scattered throughout the story. So I'm definitely down to go to an island where the Revolutionary Army actually gets some focus. Of course, there's a potential here for the Sabo storyline to get worked in there as well. To make things more interesting, maybe you can get Blackbeard involved somehow because he did have a clash with the revolutionaries before. Going back to Vira though, it was mentioned again in chapter 228 in Nolan's logbook where he mentioned it was a lively town. This one doesn't really give us too big of a hint on anything, but just the fact that it was mentioned again in Nolan's logbook I think makes it important. The Nolan story is definitely one I want to go back and reread because there's just so many hints and theories connected to it now. But yeah, the fact that Vira was mentioned multiple times in the story and it got focused in The Road to Laugh Tale does make it a possibility that we go there next. But that's gonna do it for this video, and if you made it this far, you probably had a good time, so please drop a like for the YouTube algorithm. And if you don't want to make it easy, let's play a game of rock, paper, scissors. If you lose, you have to like, subscribe, and watch the next video. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot!